scared and terrified, the alien young dragon brought her sick dragon mother to the human, beginning the encounter. The settlement of New Horizon, a human colony built on the fringes of the planet Eloria, always woke under a strange dawn. Its skies were painted with faint silver haze, the result of Eloria's twin moons casting their light across the purple atmosphere. The humans had been on this alien world for 15 years, long enough to grow accustomed to its sights, but not long enough to claim mastery of its secrets. Among the greatest mysteries were the dragons. The colonists called them dragons, though their biology was distinctly alien. They had crystalline scales that shimmered faintly with bioluminescence, long, slender bodies that resembled a fusion of serpent and bird, and luminous eyes that seemed to reflect knowledge far older than humankind. They were rare to see and even rarer to approach, wild, proud creatures that kept their distance. For Dr. Alara Valen, a xenobiologist stationed at New Horizons Medical Wing, the dragons represented the heart of Eloria's enigma. She had spent years trying to understand them, sketching their movements, recording their sounds, and analyzing shed scales when she found them in the forests. Yet she had never been closer than 100 meters to one. That changed one night. Alara was working late in the infirmary, cataloging samples, when the outer gate's motion alarms went off. At first, she thought it was one of the colony's patrol drones malfunctioning, but when she checked the surveillance feed, her breath caught. A small dragon, barely the size of a horse, was dragging itself toward the settlement, its body trembling with exhaustion. Its scales glowed faintly, but the glow flickered like a dying candle. Behind it, another figure limped weakly, collapsing every few steps. Alara froze. The second dragon was far larger, easily 10 meters long. Its wings dragged limply, and its movements were slow and pained. The smaller dragon nudged it forward, its actions frantic, almost desperate. They weren't attacking. They were seeking help. Alara grabbed her emergency kit and sprinted to the outer gates. The guard shouted at her, warning her the danger, but she barely heard them. Something in her chest stirred, a conviction that overrode logic and fear. When she reached the gates, the young dragon stood protectively over the massive one, its throat emitting low, trembling sounds. Alara's translator chip failed to interpret the noises, but she didn't need translation to understand. The young dragon was terrified, and it was pleading. Middle, the struggle to heal. The larger dragon collapsed with a thud just inside the gates. Its breathing was shallow, labored, and Alara could see dark streaks of infection spreading beneath its crystalline scales. She motioned for the guards to lower their weapons, though their hands hovered nervously over their triggers. "Let me through," Alara said firmly. "If we don't act now, it will die." The guards exchanged wary glances, but obeyed. Alara knelt by the dragon's massive head, careful not to make sudden movements. The bioluminescent veins beneath its translucent skin pulsed erratically. She touched her scanner to its scales, and the readouts nearly overloaded. Its body was fighting an aggressive infection, parasitic spores, likely native to Eloria's jungles. Alara had seen similar organisms infect small wildlife before, but never at this scale. Without intervention, the mother dragon would suffocate as the infection consumed her lungs. The young dragon whined and pressed its snout against Alara's arm. For a moment, Alara met its gaze, bright silver eyes filled with raw fear and hope. The creature was young, vulnerable, and yet brave enough to bring its mother into enemy territory. Alara made her choice. "Help me move her to the medical bay," she shouted. The process was chaos. It took 4 industrial loaders and a team of colonists to maneuver the enormous dragon into the reinforced section of the medical wing. Some colonists protested, arguing that bringing such a dangerous alien inside was madness, but Alara silenced them. She reminded them that humanity had come to Eloria not just to take, but to learn. Inside the medical bay, Alara and her team began the impossible task of treating the dragon. Human equipment was not designed for such a massive patient, so they improvised, scaling up 4 tubes, adapting oxygen systems, and using industrial coolant tanks as makeshift fluid reservoirs. The young dragon refused to leave its mother's side. It growled at anyone who came too close, except for Alara. Strangely, it allowed her to approach, watching every move with intelligent eyes. Days passed in a blur. The infection was relentless, mutating faster than the antibiotics Alara tested. At times, she feared they were losing the battle. The mother dragon convulsed in feverish fits, her massive body trembling against the reinforced floor. The young one cried out each time, its glowing scales dimming in sorrow. Alara barely slept. She spent hours analyzing samples under the microscope, searching for a breakthrough. Her hands shook with exhaustion, but she pressed on, driven by something she couldn't fully explain. Then, one night, as she adjusted the life support feeds, she felt a faint warmth against her mind. A whisper, not words, but feelings. Fear, gratitude, a desperate plea. She turned to see the young dragon staring at her, its forehead glowing faintly. Her breath caught. They were trying to communicate. The bond grew stronger over the next few days. Ilara began to sense fragments of emotions whenever she was near the young dragon. Flashes of hunger, relief, or fear. It wasn't language as humans knew it, but it was something deeper, primal. The young dragon trusted her. And she realized so did the mother. Even in her fevered state, the great dragon's eyes followed Ilara with a flicker of awareness, as though recognizing the human struggle to save her life. Finally, after weeks of failed attempts, Ilara found the breakthrough. The infection wasn't a simple parasite. It was a symbiotic organism that had gone rogue due to exposure to pollutants left by human mining operations in the jungle. That knowledge made her stomach churn. Humanity had unknowingly destabilized Iloria's ecosystem. Using a serum synthesized from the planet's native moss, Ilara developed a counteragent. It was untested, risky, but it was the mother dragon's only chance. When she injected the serum, the young dragon pressed against her, trembling with hope. Hours crawled by. The mother's breathing slowed, then steadied. The infection lines receded. Her bioluminescence glowed brighter, stronger. Ilara collapsed to her knees, tears in her eyes. They had done it, ending the bond forged. News of the event spread through the colony. Some hailed Ilara as a hero, proof that humanity and Iloria's creatures could coexist. Others whispered fears. What if the dragons turned on them now that they knew human medicine could save them? But Ilara didn't care about politics. She cared about the moment when the mother dragon finally rose, towering over the medical bay, her massive wings stretching with renewed strength. The walls trembled, alarms blared, but the dragon's gaze was gentle. The young dragon chirped with joy and nuzzled against her mother. Then, to Ilara's astonishment, the great dragon lowered her head toward the human. For a heartbeat, Ilara felt her mind touched by something vast. Ancient wisdom, deep sorrow, and profound gratitude. It was overwhelming, like standing before a living ocean. And then it was gone. The dragons did not linger. Once the mother had regained her strength, they left the colony, but they did not vanish into the wild forever. From that day on, Ilara would sometimes see them at the edge of the forest, watching, waiting, acknowledging her presence with glowing eyes before disappearing into the mist. She knew the bond they had forged was unbreakable. The young dragon had risked everything to bring her mother to a human, and Ilara had risked everything to save them. Perhaps one day, when humanity had learned to live in harmony with Iloria rather than bending it to their will, dragons and humans would stand together. Not as enemies, not even as strangers, but as allies. Until then, Ilara carried the memory of that night with her, a reminder that trust, once given, could reshape the fate of two worlds.